Establishing routines can literally transform your classroom overnight, putting your instructions on autopilot and making your job much easier. But before we get started, here's one of my favorite routines, a joke. I just saw two construction workers sitting together and laughing. I know what they're building. Friendship. Classroom mechanics or procedures are really important in normalizing classroom behavior. Unfortunately, we sometimes get students who come to our classroom unsure as to how to behave in a class, how to walk with scissors, how to put markers back, how to write a heading on a paper. Anything that we want done in the classroom, we have to teach them how to do, and teach them how to do well. The biggest benefit of establishing routines is saving time, and you'll save a lot of it. A great deal of time is lost in the classroom by having to repeat instructions again and again to students who aren't listening. However, once you've taken the time to establish routines, the job of getting students to follow your instructions is largely done for you. You no longer have to continually tell them what to do, because the routine reminds them exactly what to do and how to do it. Additionally, routines give your students a kind of map to follow, and because this map doesn't change, it creates 100% consistency. And we all know how important consistency is in terms of teaching and managing behavior. And routines are really consistency in practice. Routines also give students a greater chance of experiencing success in your lesson. And for our tough, most challenging students, this is something they rarely get to enjoy. By giving them very clear steps to follow in order to complete a given task, the likelihood of them doing the right thing is increased dramatically. And the more opportunities you have to praise students and to thank them for behaving appropriately, the more quickly their attitudes and behaviors will change for the better. Another great thing about routines is that they can be created for almost every transition or every behavior hotspot throughout the school day. Think about all of the different transitions throughout the day where you might run into trouble. Entering the classroom, starting the lesson, distributing materials, clearing away materials, asking for help, what to do when you finished your task, what to do when you're late, how to use certain equipment, going to the library, watching a video, listening to an outside speaker or having a visitor in the classroom, handing in classwork or homework, leaving the classroom. How much easier would your teaching day be if you had routines in place for all of those difficult times? And how much smoother would the lesson be if students knew exactly what to do in each of those circumstances? Once you've decided which parts of your lesson would benefit from a routine, and these are usually the more active or less structured periods, setting up routines in your classroom is basically a case of getting your students to follow a numbered checklist. Step number 1 is to create or write your routine. These are the instructions for your routine, the directions, the procedure. And writing a routine is essentially a case of boiling down the relevant procedure to a few simple steps. The fewer, the better. Here's an example of how you might want to start a lesson. Step 1, arrive on time. Step 2, line up in silence, outside of the classroom, facing the door with your shoulder against the wall. Step 3, enter without talking and hang up your coat. Step 4, sit down in your own seat. Step 5, complete the starter activity written on the board. Step 2 is teaching the routine to your class. In order to teach the routine to your class, you have to teach it exactly the way you want it done. For example, to teach the second step in the start of the lesson routine, you would have the students line up outside of the classroom exactly as stated, in silence, and in an orderly manner. If you're happy for them to line up while chatting, pushing, and shoving, by all means, let them get away with it. but they will do the exact same thing the next time you ask them to line up. If you want students to do something right, you've got to use the technique say, see, and do. Say what you want them to do, show them how to do it, and then have them do it. So, for example, it might be better to explain that line up in silence means standing still with your left shoulder touching the wall, hands by your side, looking straight ahead, and saying absolutely nothing. Step 3 is to put the routine on display. The real key to the success of routines lies in making them so well known to students that they become almost second nature. When something becomes a habit, it no longer needs to be taught. And when repeating instructions and reminding students is no longer necessary, that is when your classroom truly becomes automated. Once you've taught your routine, it needs to be displayed in a prominent place in the classroom. This way it can serve as a constant reminder of the relevant steps. And from here on in, all you have to do with students who are off task is simply lift a finger and point at the routine displayed on the wall. This then gives you the opportunity to ask one of the most effective, non-confrontational questions for getting students to think about and take responsibility for their behavior. What should you be doing right now? And this is swiftly followed by, do it then, please. And as long as you've done a good job teaching that routine, they can't really argue with you. The most important teaching tip that I can give you is to make sure you only work on one routine at a time. If you try to implement 5 or 6 different routines in a lesson or a given day, even in a week, it's too much. And what you're going to get is poor performance. And poor routines lead to poor habits. So stick to one routine each day or each week until your students really have it down, until it becomes a good routine. It's nearly impossible to perfect every routine, but what you can work for is good routines, because good routines become good habits. And once something is a habit, you don't really even have to think about doing it. It just gets done. So, start with the most important routine that you have in your classroom. Make it a good routine, and then make it a good habit. Good luck.